Testing, testing. Can anybody hear me? Is my mic too soft? Is anybody even here? Echo! 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 Hello! 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 Crickets chirping. Wow, there's a heck of a delay between what I do and when it actually shows up on the stream. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, testing. I mean, I can hear myself in the echo chamber. So yeah, apparently this software is actually just really simple to use. I mean, I haven't even looked at the tutorial and I was able to get desktop video source set up. Took a little trial and error. I wonder how my CPU is doing. This is like where I do like half the shit on my computer. Yikes. It's pretty toasty. That is toasty. Wonder what random stuff I could do here. Just kind of totally random demonstration that I can literally just do like script PHP on interactive command prompt like this here. Let's see here. If I can do this. I know. Let's see here. How many? 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. So that's 4 decimal places of precision. And then the new line. So I, and then 1 over $sign I. Alright, everything throws an error when you divide by 0. I keep forgetting calculus. Computers don't calculus. Why do not computers calculus? Because when you calculus, you can divide by 0, technically. I mean, you actually can't divide by 0, but I mean, like, if you divide anything by 0 and you use calculus, you can take the limit of, x over 0 as you approach from, like, the positive, and it basically tends towards positive infinity, so you can kind of use that to say that anything divided by 0 is infinity, but really not. I'm totally just rambling to myself right now. Yeah, math is kind of one of my specialties. Well, actually, it's not really a specialty. It's more just something I like to play with. Pretty much the math that I like really seriously remember goes all the way up to geometry, where it involves the trigonometric functions. So like, sine, cosine, and tangent, how to actually use those in terms of geometry, that's basically where my mathematical knowledge stops. Because I can't remember trig identities for the life of me. Those were my Achilles heel. Yeah, your icon really caught me off guard for a moment. Okay, here's the funky thing about trig. Okay, when you first start learning about trig, at least with the way it's supposed to work in, American high school system and whatnot, trig is supposed to come right after geometry. So after you've learned all of your stuff about geometry, you learned how angles make different kinds of shapes and crap like that, Pythagorean theorem stuff. Trigonometry extends that, or at least it starts to. In particular, the trig that I remember the best is where it involves unit circles and right-angle triangles. Because, for example, if you have a triangle and you know the length of one side and you know the measurement of one angle, and keep in mind this only works if the angle that you know is not the right angle. That's actually very important. You have to know one of the 2 acute angles in a right-angle triangle, but if you know one side and one of those 2 acute angles, you can actually use the trig functions, sine, cosine, and tangent, to calculate the value of the other acute angle and the lengths of both of their sides. And it comes really in handy, particularly when you're doing a lot of math involving regular platonic solids. Like, for example, squares, pentagons, hexagons, octagons, etc. I actually wrote a PHP script that can do that math. And does it automatically. And it's mostly just for the sake of me being able to do stuff in scalable vector graphics. Because scalable vector graphics pretty much leaves all the math up to the user. So you have to be able to do the math yourself. So whenever I play with scalable vector graphics, it gives me some serious geometry workout. So geometry is pretty much kind of one of my specialties in that regard. I'm going to switch this to my webcam so you can see my ugly mug. And also my horribly messy room. Okay, you can kind of see my ugly mug because the light's behind me. Well, kind of. Okay, now I'm illuminated like fucking Jesus. Oh. Was I speaking too quick? Was I speaking too quick? Yes, okay, so it's probably just the words I was using then. How to word. Unfortunately, with math, it's kind of hard, for at least for me, to use, to at least not use, to use, words that are, like, easily understood. Most of the words that come to mind, like, first and foremost, are the ones that I actually bother to remember, associated with the topic in school. Oh, and you can also see how much of a horrific mess my bedroom is. Like, really horrific mess. Yeah, that's the thing about math. It's just like any other trained skill. If you don't practice it on a regular basis, you lose it. But hey, all that constant playing around with math, it did come in handy, because I had to construct a I had to actually construct a pattern that I want to be using for making rubber skirts and stuff. And let's see if I can find it here. Give me a minute. Is it in this folder? Where be? Yes, there you are. Doink and doink. Okay, so I had to make a pattern to be able to make latex skirts. And wow, my browser is like really borking this SVG. But anyways, the pattern I had to make was I had to map the slanted surface of a truncated cone, also known as a circular frustrum. Frustrum is the technical term for like a pyramid or a cone-shaped solid that has that basically has two parallel sides like this. It pretty much has like a base and a tabletop. So I had to map this slanted surface area to its two-dimensional mapping, which you can actually do. You can map any three-dimensional platonic solid to a two-dimensional polygon, or a two-dimensional mapping of multiple polygons. I mean, that's how, like, in one of those little hands-on projects that you probably had to do in grade school, where you cut out these patterns with, like, bazillion triangles or pentagons or something like this, and you folded it in just the right way, and you can make, like, an icosahedron or a dodecahedron. It's the same concept. When you take the slanted surface, basically, the idea behind this, and I had to use a bit of a logical extension to get to this, the two-dimensional mapping of a cone, like a circular cone, is basically a circle with a pie slice cut out of it. And then you take those two straight edges of that cutout and you meet them together and you basically turn that circle into a cone. So to map this slanted surface of this truncated cone, this circular frustrum, I had to map it to basically a circle with not just a pie slice cut out of it, but with a smaller circle in the middle cut out of that as well. So a circle with another circle cut out of the middle of it is basically called an annulus in geometry. And any piece of a circle, like any piece of a circle that's not a complete circle, is what's called a sector. And it doesn't matter whether it's, more or less than 180 degrees, what you've got is a sector. So this figure right here, which is the two-dimensional mapping of, and you have to imagine this right here is a three-dimensional shape. This is a two-dimensional mapping of that slanted surface area, and this is basically an annular sector. So you're just combining your terms here. And you can kind of see how a lot of the measurements relate to each other on this regard. And if you're asking questions, I'm going to have to pop back over to the stream to look at them. Wrong tab. Dude. But yeah, sectors. So basically, I had to map this three-dimensional surface area to this two-dimensional shape. And then I had to be able to relate all of this together so that way I can have like a very simple form where I can just ask for a few basic measurements. And the only basic measurements that I need for this whole thing, because of the way I work this math out, is the wearer's waistband measurement, which could be in either inches or centimeters. Like for me, I'm a 32-inch waist. Or, yeah, I fit 32-inch pants. I technically 31-inch. The height of the skirt, which is basically, how far it would fall down your legs when you wear it. And then what I have here is the skirt angle. And this is kind of an unintuitive measurement, and it's not really an official one used when making skirts. I had to make this one up completely. But the idea is that this angle is basically anywhere between 0 degrees, which is just a straight tube, to 90 degrees, which would just be a flat disc. And this angle essentially, right here determines the frilliness of the skirt. Just how much it waves at the very bottom. And so from there, I just had to take these three measurements and turn them into everything else, all of these unknown variables, so that way I could properly calculate. The dimensions of the pieces that I would need to cut from a flat sheet of latex and be able to glue them together. And so the first time I did this, I was actually still working at HostGator at the time as a tech support. So I did have kind of some boring dead time. This was back when I was on calls. So, it's usually one problem at a time when you're on calls. When you get to a certain point in a call where you're having to wait for internal support, you basically end up doing a lot of waiting game and delaying the customer, making sure they don't get too mad at you for making them wait. And so whenever that happened, basically I had free time to start, doodling and thinking about this kind of stuff. And it took me less than a week to crack all of the math and do all the math necessary to map this to this. I lost all of that math. Completely misplaced it. I have no clue where it went. I have no clue where it ended up at all. So I had to crack the math again. I had to crack the math again. So I had not looked at this in a long time. I mean, I already had this document made. It's just that I had the steps out of order or something like that, so it wasn't that easy to actually crack it. It took me the better part of a month working at home, because by then I was working as a parts driver for an auto parts store, so I really could only work on it at home. But it took me the better part of a month to crack the math again, which was not fun. And this is my proof. All these steps, and some of them combine multiple steps into one. And then I've got this list of mathematical derivations right here at the bottom that kind of sums it up quite nicely. But these were all the steps that I had to go through to take these three unknowns and be able to compute all 6 of these. So yeah, it wasn't easy, but I was able to crack it again. And then I made sure that I had all of this written down right here, so that way if I ever forgot it again, I could read through this again and not have to go through the hassle of manually cracking this math again, so that way I would be able to actually do this. So, just sanity checks. Sanity checks. Sanity checks. But anyhow, though, so yeah, that's all of this, and I hope that I can be able to do this at some point. But for right now, though, this is going to have to wait. Because to even be able to build a single skirt, I'm actually going to need several yards of at least one color. Not to mention, a little bit of, possibly another color to add some decoration, like, striping and such. Wow, my MacBook's mic is very sensitive. I should probably tell you right now that as skinny as I am, it's pretty much because I have an extremely high metabolism. In fact, let me quick switch back to the webcam here, just so I can show you. This bowl was almost completely filled with pasta, and I've eaten about half of it in one sitting, and I'm full. And I'm probably gonna be hungry. I'm probably gonna be like ravenously hungry again by the time morning rolls around. Yeah. Oh God, some of these companies that have like social media teams, for some of them, their social media teams are so on point and they understand the internet so well. It's a wonder how they managed to get that job. Like Taco Bell, whoever does their Twitter is like the most amazingly brilliant person ever. Yeah, but I bet those bed sheets feel so nice once they come out of the dryer. You don't like fresh, clean bed sheets? What the heck? I have never had that problem with bed sheets in the dryer. That actually sounds like your dryer is not producing as much heat as it should be. Because I do remember having... Huh. Yeah, I've actually never had that problem with bed sheets in the dryer before. I'm wondering if you're... Yeah, that's oddly never happened to me. But anyways, Taco Bell. Yeah, it sounds like there's something wrong with your dryer. Like either it's not producing as much heat as it should, or if it's got any sort of. I think dryers also have like a fan that's supposed to blow air. That's supposed to blow the hot air over everything. It's possible the fan in that might not be working either. Because even if stuff gets bundled up like that, it's supposed to get dried. Like supposed to. So there's something that's not working like it should be with that dryer. But anyways, Taco Bell's social media team. Like, I actually can't really tell or describe. I don't follow them either, but like I've seen some of the stuff that they tweet. I've seen some of the stuff that they've done on Twitter, and like Taco Bell, Old Spice, Taco Bell, Old Spice, Allstate, particularly their Mayhem guy, who I do follow. These are all three of these social media accounts are so on point, and they get the internet so much. Like, they totally get the internet. And it's just amazing watching them interact with some of their users. Like, especially the Old Spice guy. Like, I've actually seen him bite back at people that are like being overly creepy or overly abusive or something like that. That's one of the things that I've seen, is that some companies give their social media people so much autonomy that they actually have the ability to defend themselves against trolling, against harassment, stuff like that. Like, they'll actually bite back at that, and they'll do so with like the most amazing sarcasm or sardony, or just out and out, like, it's just beautiful watching them sometimes. It's so hilarious. And sometimes I wonder how some of these people manage to keep their jobs with the way they bite back against trolls and harassers. But they do. I mean, they probably have managers that understand that, hey, this is the internet. This kind of stuff is fair game. Let's see. It is. I mean, basically, the companies that have these social media teams that have this much autonomy, they put a lot of trust in their people to not screw up. To understand that, where the line is drawn, that they've gone too far. And it's amazing because, like, particularly for like Taco Bell, Old Spice, and Allstate with their Allstate Mayhem guy, the people that they have in these positions, they definitely know where the line is. They toe it a lot, but they don't cross it. And it just makes for the most amazing and the most real interactions that you can get with a corporation's social media presence. Because you could very obviously tell that the people operating these accounts grew up on the internet. You know, they grew up on the internet. They probably, they probably lurked in 4chan when they were in high school. So, you can actually see this air of, I was a 4chan lurker. Like, you can especially see that with whoever's doing Taco Bell's Twitter account. They totally have. I swear, there's like no denying that they had to have been a 4chaner, and they probably still are. Actually, it does. The fact that it comes off as so human and so organic actually does leave me a good impression on the company. It also helps that Taco Bell has been making an effort of making their food better. Little bit at a time, but their quality has been improving. So I mean, Taco Bell still got a little ways to go, but I am not ashamed in admitting that every once in a while I get a hankering for Taco Bell, and whenever I go to Taco Bell to eat Taco Bell, I don't feel like a piece of shit afterwards. But yeah, going back to what I was saying about my waistline, though, it's not all it's cut up to be. Like I've said, my metabolism is ridiculous. Which is odd because, I don't eat like I have a huge metabolism. But that's part of it, because what I do eat goes through me quick. So it's not unusual for me to have to eat at least 3 meals a day, if not 4. And they're usually pretty big meals. Or, in a lot of cases, just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which seems to fill me up quite nicely for a couple hours. But fast metabolism, I keep hearing that, it's that I'm lucky, or, that I have a gift, or, shit like this. No, a fast metabolism is not a gift. It is not a blessing. Fast metabolism is not a blessing. It's a curse. And, like, slow metabolism is less of a curse than a fast one. Because at least with a slow metabolism, you have the ability to fast, or you have the ability to, eat healthier and lighter meals, and, be able to exercise and lose some of that weight, if not most of it. With a fast metabolism, I have to eat a lot just to keep from passing out. Because when I start feeling the hunger pains, that means I am already running on fumes. And if I don't have food within like an hour or 2 or 3 of starting to feel those hunger pains, I actually start to feel a little faint. It gets increasingly difficult to think. I get increasingly irritable to the point that I will bite anybody's head off, and it's just it becomes increasingly difficult for me to keep my eyes open or hold my head up straight. So usually when I start feeling the hunger pains, I've got to stop and eat something. I don't like having a fast metabolism. I would like for my metabolism to be a little bit slower, to where I actually do have to, go out and exercise to keep the weight off. I would much rather my metabolism be a bit slower, so that way I don't have to eat. But either way, I maintain that a slow metabolism is, or not slow, a fast metabolism is a curse. Wow, I'm already tired. And what sucks is the job that I had before this current one, because I'm driving for an O'Reilly Auto Parts now. I used to drive for an Advanced Auto Parts. Exact same job, just working for a different company now. And working for Advanced Auto Parts, sometimes my boss would force me to delay my lunch for a while. There was even one time I actually told him, dude, I have to stop and eat lunch now. I'm about to pass out. And he turned right around and bit my head off and told me to go back out there and do the next delivery. Or that he was going to send me home for the day. And I wanted to just lay his ass out flat on the floor in the store. Like, I was well into the extremely irritable phase of my hunger at that point. That I was ready to get into it with him. I was honestly ready to get into it with him because of the way he bit my head off in that moment. And then the mother flupper sent me home early anyways after I got done with that flippin' delivery. It's one of the worst bosses I've ever had. Yeah, it is total crap, and unfortunately here in Texas, he can get away with it. Okay, well, I am going to consider this to be... Let's see here. Yeah, I think I'm going to consider this to be a successful test of live streaming on YouTube. So, I guess I'm going to go ahead and shut this down for the night. I'll see you later.